decades. A crankbait's a lip with a body. Most of the stuff that I fished with was, plastic injected baits, and polycarbonate lip would be glued in there, and you'd fish with them and they'd fall apart. And then, well, there's $22 I just lost. And so I said, I'm going to make something better that, it's going to cost more than $22, but I mean, it's going to catch fish and it's not going to fall apart. So I just examined how crankbaits were, what to expect, how they run, learned the hydrodynamics of what made them work, and then decided I wanted to make something that I could call mine, and that it was different from everybody else's. I always thought that, we don't need another knockoff copy of another bait. There's enough crap in the landfill now, why add to it? So the idea came to me one night when I was walking my dog, that when she would walk the left side of the sidewalk, right side, she just wandered like that, and I just kind of watched her. It got to be great if a fishing lure could do that just by itself. You don't have to, use a rod to do any of that, that it just works, and it's not something that had a rhythm to it. Like it would just wander like a dog does. It doesn't go left, right for 2 seconds. It goes this way, and then, we're going to stay this way. And so I wanted to make a bait that ran an erratic way. And I looked at the collar around her neck, and that kind of slid around her neck. And I go, God, maybe that's the key to fishing lure for me, was most of the fishing lures have a line tied, like right off of the nose, and then the lip is separate. I said, well, I'm going to have mine where there's a clevis pin in it, and it can rotate. And that's the collar around her neck that I think is going to allow this thing to both wander erratically and but still try to run efficiently. And so I put 3 depth settings on here. There's a front, a middle, and a back. So they run a little bit more erratic in the front, and then they kind of stabilize as you go back. So that was kind of the impetus for the design, was now I've got a lip that does something that no other bait does. They both wander, but then actually when you troll them, there's like a 4-foot a wander each side of center. So you got an 8-foot path. This thing is going back and forth and back and forth, and it stimulates bites, because to me it's like a fleeing bait fish trying to get away. And when we first started, every time we went out, we got like 3 fish a night, every time, because fish had not seen something like that. They weren't afraid of it. I was catching fish, so I had this like a little secret, and I brought my friends out, my brother out, and then we'd catch fish, and that thing's pretty amazing. Yeah. We got to do something with it. So I had some friends at Thorn Brothers, and I showed them, and they said, yeah, we're okay. Yeah, we want to sell them. Excuse me. And then they said, well, you got to talk to a lawyer, because you got to patent this now. You got something here. This is a real thing. So I met some guy who knew a guy at the top of the IBS, and here I'm in this law firm, and they want $20,000. And I don't have $20,000. We'll take your deal, we'll patent it, we'll defend it, but we need $20,000 up front. I said, that's not going to work for me. I can't do that. So they said, well, the best advice we can give you is make as many as you can as fast as you can, because somebody's going to steal it then from you. They're going to start making them, and they're going to make them for cheaper, and they're not going to be as good, and they're going to cost less, and they're going to race you to who's going to sell the most first. So just make as many as you can as fast as you can. So, and they were right, there's a lot of knockoffs and you know, they recognize the good ideas, so we just try to make them as good as we can and keep them priced as low as we can, but still make money. And so far it's worked out. My first one was 2006 that I made that caught fish. I started selling them in 2008, I think, and then getting them into stores 2010. So it's been about 12 years I've been in stores. I stopped being a furniture maker in 2015, so it's been full-time since 2015. So I've got 4 employees, 2 full-time and 2 part-time. Got a shop on the Midway in St. Paul. Let's see. Let's start here. I make everything out of red cedar. That's wood. I've got 2 ballast weights here that are lead. I'm trying not to use lead. My wife is an architect, and she says you got to stop using lead. You got to figure out a way not to use lead. It's not good for you. It's not good for the environment. I said, God, but it's so cheap, you know. And it's encapsulated in there. Where is it going to go? She goes, it doesn't matter. You just try to stop using it. Come up with something. You're a designer. Figure it out. So what we're doing now in the last three years is we're using it's red cedar on top and red alder on the bottom, and it's a heavier piece of wood that's now my ballast. So it's treated just the same as this was. I've got 2 pieces of lead. They go in about 1/2 inch. But now the whole bottom is a ballast. And so when they land, you know, everything's like this. You guys have it, you know, your ducks, they flip over and they sit like they're supposed to. These sit like they're supposed to, and then start running right away. So I mill the wood. I get it close to the right size. I dry it in an old freezer that I put a heating element in. I get the moisture content down to about 8%. Some of it cracks, I throw it away. Some of it's too heavy, I can't use it. I keep drying it until I can get the moisture content right where I need to. Some other parts, I have aluminum lips. Those are laser cut in Milwaukee. I got to order 8,000 at a time. I get a few years of use there. I started out making the baits with a glitter. It's just like a craft store polyester, a glitter, and this is a shad. But I remember fishing in South Dakota, and we were catching walleyes, and we went from one point to the next, and I got a big fish. It was a salmon. I threw the salmon in the cooler, and then when we went out to we stopped fishing and we cleaned the fish. There was all these little flakes of scale in there, and I go, oh God, that'd be, I was probably senior in high school. That's really cool to have all that, and it just stuck with me. And then I remembered back then when I was looking for a new finish. If you got a new bait, you might as well have a new finish too. You can't copy anybody else's finish. You got to call it your own. If you're going to really be a designer and be an innovator and want to be a pioneer, you got to do it all yourself. So to me, I invented a lip that catches fish. It works great, and I think I'd like to say that I kind of helped the glitter and the finish, that no one had a finish like I did. So I've been making them for, I don't know, about 14 years now. And I think everybody who's bought one, they're just kind of seeing them, and it doesn't wow them anymore. This is just glitter, it's shiny. Yeah, people like shiny things, but after 12, 14 years of seeing shiny things, it doesn't really affect anybody anymore. So I started making them with foil, where I don't use the glitter anymore. Is I use just a roll of foil, and then I thermally bond the foil onto the blank. And I don't cut anything out. It's just a heat and press, and and anywhere where it's hot, it just sticks, and there's no adhesive there, and we just pull it off, and the foil sticks to the blank, and then we can paint over it and epoxy it, and it's ready to go. So for walleye opener, that's my version of a walleye.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You were trolling out in South Dakota, you were hitting walleyes with those?
Not with these. I was just, we were fishing with Rapalos.
Okay,
I was,
okay.
let's see, I was 1980. I was a senior. So,
That'd be for pike and muskie, wouldn't it?
muskie. I fish for muskies now. I got bored of catching walleyes and bass. I lived in Minneapolis, and we used to go down to the there's the north and south Hidden Falls. And we'd go down there. You'd get a 6-pound walleye every night. Every night we went, we'd catch 12 to 20 walleyes, and you get a 6-pounder every time. It got boring. What do? You want to go catch it? No, not really. I don't really want to go down because I know how it's going to end. But the river's a different story. The river's never the same every night. But, so I just said, I'm bored. I can't fish for walleyes anymore. And my brother-in-law called me from North Carolina and said, "This is where I do an impression. This is, you go, Duff, have you ever caught a muskie?" I said, "No." He goes, "I want to catch me a muskie." So he came up, and we hired a guide, and the first time we went out, I got 2 muskies. The first day he didn't catch one, and then the next day he got one. And I was hooked on muskie fishing. That was 1999, and then I started muskie fishing in 2000 and making lures in 2006. So.
If you flip that thing out with your big muskie rod, you're gonna put a wrench in your back, aren't you?
We just troll these, so you let out 3 or 4 feet of line.
Well, you don't do that, huh?
I don't. I can't do that. For a little while I can, but not very long. But this year we did come out with casting baits, because we figured about 10% of the market is a troller and 90% are casters. So casters tend to just cast, and trollers, the serious ones, just troll. And then there's the in-betweens who do a little bit of both. So
I have a question on.
Yes, sir.
When you were designing, looking at the ballast and trying to have it be upright, I mean, you've got a lot of hardware on it in the end, right? You got hooks on it, you
Yeah.
have snap swivels, you got split rings and things like this. Were you trying to achieve something that floats or slowly sinks? You want it to be upright when it lands, but you do have hooks hanging down.
Yeah.
How much work went into
The development part of it?
Yeah, determining, because in that one design, you added some lead shot in there.
Yeah.
But you must have determined that based on the final product with all the hooks and everything.
Yeah, it was just wood, and then, we just used raw wood. And then added all this stuff, and this is gonna be a slave type thing. We're not gonna fish with this. This is a development thing.
Okay.
We caught fish with just bare unfinished wood with hooks. We're just trying to make sure the bait runs.
Correct.
Like this one ran, this one doesn't run. The lip is way off on this one. So it's not just so it sits right. You gotta design we can have square lips, you can have round lips, where to put the pins, how thick that is.
The angle of
The angle, the pitch angle here, a lot of variables.
Yeah.
You know, so it took a couple years just to get it to run right. And then, once it ran right, then you figure out, you know, how you're gonna paint it, how you're gonna seal it. You don't want the stuff coming off. So, just a lot of things went into the beginning. And it wasn't full-time, it was part-time for me, but I would spend more time playing with the lure design than I did fishing. But
Yeah.
that was, to me, the exciting part.
Yeah,
Get up there.
no, I get it. Yeah.
So that to me was the best part, is the lure development part of it.
Do you have a tank that you run them through?
No.
It's all on the water.
We have it dialed now, so we don't test anything. We did when we first started. Now everything is, you know, is just almost laser, you know. Probably NASA would come to my shop to try to make sure that their instruments are as accurate as mine. The delivery is a little slow, but, so I don't, so and it has to do too with efficiency. The hook hangers on mine are turned opposed to most every other bait made. The other ones are turned this way. And there's a reason for that, is the way a treble hook is made. It's a double hook with one brazed on there. So when you add a split ring, the hook is symmetrical now on the bait. So instead of having two barbs on one side and one in the middle, you've got a barb on each side and one right down the center. So it cuts down on hook rash. It cuts down on hooking it over to the side or sticking into the side, so then it doesn't run right. We have the barb is stuck into the body. So now it just rotates right around there. So all these are opposed to, so what I like to say is every fishing lure is made wrong, because these are turned the opposite way. And they were turned like this for a reason before the invention of split rings. So there were no split rings on the earlier baits. So all the cotter pins and the eye screw is kind of a new invention too, and for lure making. But there was no split ring, so the hook went on there first and then they closed it, so there was no split ring. So if this was turned the other way, the way that most lures are now, there'd be no split ring on it, and then the hook is sitting there. So with the addition of a split ring, these have to be opposed, and now these are the right way. Every other one is wrong.
Talk about anchoring those.
These are about 1.5 inches long. They're stainless steel, and then they're drilled. You know, the wood is drilled through the center like a pilot hole.
Are those eye bolts, or are those your cotter pin?
It's a
It's
screw
a
on.
screw, it's got a screw.
Yeah, so there's a wood thread on there, and we
And
screw them in.
you're epoxying it in with?
Yeah, so we take a toothpick and we fill the cavity. The cavity is about 3/4 of an inch deep, and we pack it full of epoxy, and then we drive the screw. We drive the screw in there, and then align it. So,
See? Have you recovered your crust? Have you breaking even yet, or are you still?
yeah, broken even. Broken even.
This is the foil,
Yeah, this is a foil that's on there.
and then you paint on top of it?
And we paint on top. A lot of times we paint the belly and the back, and then we put the foil on, and then we do our top coats of paint,
What does he paint on
and
there?
then epoxy.
Have you got a lure for
Oh, by hand? though.
catching stir?
He's got foil.
I don't yet.
Like,
I
you
think
can
they're
see
more of
the
a-
scales.
Yeah, yeah.
I did catch a sturgeon
I
one
think
night
the
though
paint
on
is on top of the
this
foil.
St. Croix. It was middle of July, a full moon, and I had one of these out. This is a lip lock, and we were just north of Afton. There's a hump that comes up in the middle of the lake. Comes up to about 18 feet, but it's surrounded by about 80 foot of water. We came off that hump, and there was a lot of bait there, and my rod goes off, and I pick it up out of the hole, and I go, yeah, I got her. I thought I had the world record. I was convinced I had the world record. my buddy puts the net down, he goes, it's not a muskie. I said, what do you mean it's not a muskie? You know, what's gonna hit that? A catfish? What's in there that's gonna hit it? He goes, it's not a muskie. And it turned out it was a 49-inch sturgeon. It was hooked in the back. So I didn't, it was just bull dog. I was like heartbroken for about a week and a half. I just like, why couldn't have that been a muskie? Why couldn't it be a muskie? But that's fishing, so. I really enjoy that.
What kind of paints do you use?
Rattle can then, mostly.
That,
I do have an airbrush, I can use it a little bit, but it's not my favorite way.
so it's all by brush then?
No, just aerosol can, I do all this with just an rattle can. And stencils and, what do you call those things, like you cut them out, and you make a shape. There's a word for it.
Template?
Kind of like a decal, not just like a cutout, I don't know what you call it. Stencil?
Yeah, I think it's a stencil.
Okay.
How did you apply the wood? Is it a layer of,
I just brush it out right on here
okay,
and make a bed of epoxy and then sprinkle this on.
I got you.
And then I use those shipping airbags and just embed it in there. And then we coat it again with epoxy, and 8 hours after it dries, and then we paint on top of that. It's all so you guys are passing one around. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a friend who worked for the Department of Transportation. He gave me all this
I don't know.
DOT for the cutouts for the signs, and there's like blues and yellows and 3 or 4 different kinds of oranges and greens, and so he'd come in with these armloads of like triangular shape, you know, they're drop. It's when they make a sign, there's corners and there's this stuff that they don't use. He said, we're supposed to throw this in the garbage, but I just can't do it because I know. So, every time he'd come and visit me, he'd give me this armful of this stuff, and I still have it. And the adhesive on it is super great. You don't see like highway signs and D laminate. And it's really reflective, and there's scales and prism. It's really a bright bait. So, I use glitter, I use the DOT tape, I use foil, and then there's just straight paint too catches fish. You don't have to use bright, shiny objects to catch fish. So.
Have you ever used your lures up on Lake Superior?
Yes, I have.
And
I got a 30-pound lake trout last spring, and I got a guy up there. His name's Grant Sorensen. He's got a TV show called Superior Angling. He's trying to get a 50-pound lake trout there. We've got guides up on Wollaston Lake Lodge that sent me pictures of a 50-pound lake trout from there. They said we get 40s a lot, but they want the 50 pounders now. So.
What size fish are you using for those?
The 10-inch headlock is the size that Grand uses. That I use as well. And they'll come up and hit them, or we can put them on a downrigger. With siding and beam, you can see how far down.
Hey, that's great.
If you still do make lures out of wood, or is it all the injected?
No, most of them are wood, and then I got this higher end one. It's called a lip lock. I made it out of wood. I've got a lathe, and what I did is I put three chunks of wood in together that were the same size. Let's just say this is 3 by, let's say an inch, an inch. So it's 3 tall, 3 inches wide, and I turned it on the lathe, kind of so it ended up more like a baseball bat. And then you throw that center part away. You take the center part out, and now you've got more of a fish shape than a baseball bat shape where it's round and it's got that fish shape. And off of that, I had this digitally, I made a few, probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 a year, and I could sell them, but it was kind of labor intensive. Cut that gill in there. And I thought, you know, if I'm serious about this, maybe I should get like a mold made. So I had somebody scan this, and then they evened everything out. And then I had a cavity, it separates, there's two parts, it indexes. And inside this is a spine, an aluminum bar. I've always had this thing where I wanted to make something indestructible, like someone will say, oh, those eye screws will pull out, you should use wire through. You're not doing the best you could do. Wire through is that's the best way to make a lure. That's another impression that I did.
Good job.
So I thought, you know, what's better than just wire through a bait? I thought like aluminum bars would be better than wire. Not just twisted wire, like stainless steel cotter pins that are drilled and keyed through that. You know, what fish or rock or what's gonna pull that out? Do you wanna know? I don't know. I don't think there's anything really. So I wanted to make an indestructible bait. So that spine goes in, it indexes inside of the mold. And then I use like dental floss to hold the rear hook hanger so I can pull it tight and close the mold.
Do you make your molds?
No, I had a friend who cuts the lips in Milwaukee. He said, I'll make a mold for you. But I get the first one, he said. I get the first one out.
You don't need 8,000 of those, do you?
No, I make, I used to do about 12 years. This year we're gonna do about 50.
Is that steel or aluminum?
It's aluminum. And then that's what we get out of it. This has been coated with epoxy, but the spine has a hole in it, and we put 2 Mexican coins on each side with a ball bearing on inside. Some guys like lead, some guys like, you know, ball bearing, some guys like plastic. So it makes kind of a rattle. And they go like this, so that's the way the rattle goes. The lip attaches to the spine on the outside after the finish is done. Number 10 stainless screw, and then Loctite goes in the threads. So you can get it off if you heat it, and then just 2 line tie holes through a pin there.
Do those run different than the wood ones?
These are a lot more aggressive. They really wander. Probably 8 feet each side of center, so they don't play very well with the other baits. You got to keep them. You got to stagger your line length.
Can I ask you something?
So is that injected plastic then? or-
No, this is just a hand poured, so it's got a hole here. We mix them. We mix the resin and catalyst and some micro balloons in a yogurt container. We measure them by gram weight, and it takes about a half an hour for everything to set up, and then we demold, and we got the next batch all ready to go. So we can make probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 a day when we're geared up for it. We make them when it's super cold and there's not a lot of moisture in the air. The material's real sensitive to moisture, so we don't make them in the summertime. We make them in January when it's really, really cold.
You have to use some sort of mold release?
We use a wax in there, a water-soluble wax. And then when they come out of there, I just kind of clean them up a little bit, cut off the spur that's on the top here, wash them down with mineral spirits, and I bring them home and I wash them through the dishwasher.
If I was to go to the store and buy one, about what do I have to pay?
For these, they're $350. We have a sign on one to get them.
But that comes with hooks, right?
And it comes with it.
That's a lot of lobster.
Yeah. So,
Depends on how bad you want the muskie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I've had guys that, they'll buy these and they'll fish them, and then other guys will just buy them and they don't fish
Hang
them
'em
at
up.
all. They go down in their basement, and I don't know what they do with them. But I want to tell you the story. I had this guy, he bought some baits of mine at Thorn Brothers, and he liked them. He hadn't used them yet, but he didn't see everything that he wanted. So he saw I had a website, and he bought 10 of them off the website. One morning, I think he ordered about 10 o'clock. I had them in the mail by noon. And the next day he called me and said, I'm like super impressed with your service. I ordered yesterday at 10 a.m. and they're sitting on my porch, and today he lived in White Bear Lake, or maybe he still does. So he goes, you want to make some baits for me? I said, sure. So he came over, he had a list of like 50 baits he wanted me to make. I gotta back up a little bit. He goes, well, I'm from St. Paul. I live in St. Paul. He goes, well, I went to high school in St. Paul. I go, okay. So he came over, and on the receipt for my website, his name was John Morris. And guy walks through the door, it's Jack Morris. What the? I thought your name was John Morris. He goes, well, that's my given name, but everybody calls me Jack. Okay. So he gave me this list of 50 baits, and we sat around and chatted. I don't know, a month or so later, I call him and say, hey, your baits are done. He goes, okay, I'll come and get them sometime in the next few days. He would never tell me when he's coming, because I think he's afraid that I would have like a bunch of people standing at the shop waiting for him to come. So he'd never give me a time or day when he's coming. He'd just come by. So he ended up buying 226 baits from me. Yeah. And then every time he'd come over, he'd have an envelope of cash. He goes, here, okay. Yeah, that's right. You don't have to pay me cash. You can pay me a check or credit card or however you want to do it. No, I want to do it like this. Okay. All right.
He's giving away a bit, isn't he?
I don't know. I think he's,
Oh, his buddies.
I'm guessing he might have a problem.
Good problem for you.
He told me the story when he was a rookie. He was drafted by the Detroit Tigers, and the Tigers got Chet Lemon in a trade that winter. So Lemon was trying to show off his arm, and Morris was trying to make the team. And Lemon would throw the ball in, trying to show his arm off, and Morris yelled at him, "Don't throw it in, you're gonna hit somebody." Well, about an hour later, Lemon threw the ball and it broke his arm right above his elbow. He didn't make the team. And he was out for, I think he said 2.5 months. So he went back to pitch in August. He said if I had a bat, I would have killed Chet Lemon right there on the field. He just ruined my chances of being a major league baseball player. I could have killed him, he said. He just had this anger and this storytelling face. So what I did is I went on eBay and I found a Chet Lemon baseball card for when he was a Tiger, his first year, and then I put it in a frame and I signed it. Said, "Sorry about your arm, Jack." Chet, and his nickname in the clubhouse was Juice, so Chet Juice Lemon, and I mailed it to his house. But I had a friend in Tampa because Chet Lemon had a baseball school there, so I mailed the frame to my friend, and then he mailed it back to St. Paul. And I've never talked to Jack Morris after that. He's never called me. He's never bought any more baits from me. That's it. I think he figured it out that I was the one who sent it to him. Either that, and he might have got caught. His wife might have caught him. You know, how many baits do you have? What is this worth? You know, just a crazy amount of money that he spent. with me, so. Anyway,
Doesn't he live in St. Paul?
lives in Delwood,
Yeah,
so
okay.
just outside of,
Yeah.
White Bear Lake. I invited him to go fishing with me one time, a bunch of times, but, you're what, a mile away? You could bike over to the boat launch and jump in the boat,
So did he send Herbeck and Lodner over? Because those guys are outdoorsmen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Herbeck lived probably 2 miles away from where I grew up in West Bloomington.
Okay.
I don't think he's a muskie fisherman.
He's a bass guy, or a walleye.
Walleye bass.
Dabney does some ocean fishing.
Yeah. My brother's a UPS guy, and he delivered to Herbeck's house, and his boat was outside, didn't have a cover on it. He said it had like worms were all dried on the hooks and all that. He might be like a TV fisherman or something, for all I know.
Well, he had a TV show for a while, and
Yeah.
we were down in Clearwater Beach 2 years ago, and we ended up taking a guide trip out for about half a day, and the guy said that he had taken Herbeck out, and who was his co-host on there was one of the CCO sportscasters. He said that he had them on there for
Okay.
a couple of times. He'd taken them out there out in the bay.
Well, yeah, I think once you get fishing in your blood, it's kind of hard to get it out of it. So, anyway. I'd be glad to answer any more questions you have, but other than that, I think, that's my story,
Do you sell your, up in Canada?
Yeah, I got three stores in Canada. One's on Lake of the Woods, another one by Niagara Falls.
Can we get your website on our notes, our minutes?
Supernaturalbigbaits.com.
Big baits.
Yes,
Can you talk about the finish?
it's a two-part epoxy. Envirotex is the company. They're based in California. Most of the epoxies are made in Michigan, and then suppliers buy them and mix their own ingredients and stuff in them. But they're UV, a UV inhibitor is in there, so I don't say that they won't yellow, but it really retards the UV light that absorbs inside of the finish, and they stay clear. It's durable, it flexes a little bit for temperature and heat. If you have a hot glass out of the dishwasher and you put it under the water, it'll crack. Same thing with epoxy. It's got a range of about 20 to 25 degrees. If it's shocked like over that 25 degrees, then you're going to develop cracks in the finish, and then water's going to get into the wood, and then the wood's going to expand, and it's going to be a mess. And what did I do?
How do you apply the epoxy?
I brush it on, and then I use slow rotating RPM motor.
Okay.
Axeman is where, I don't think I would have invented anything if it wasn't for Axeman. Little motors for $9. I still have them. They're 15 years old. Just a slow RPM. I made a holder for these that slips in the pin here, and then there's a piece of black pipe, 1/8" black pipe. It's threaded on the end, and then a socket, and then this motor turns it like a clock.
Gotcha.
It's just a disc. And people ask me, where'd you get those discs from? I said, well, you remember that Holodazzle parade? Well, these were the snowflakes for the Holodazzle. Really? I said, no. So they just like the shape. I don't know, it's kind of a snowflake shape that I made, and I put these sockets on there. So you don't need any tools to put it on. You brush it on, you turn it in the socket, and it turns it around, 6 revolutions a minute, nothing drips, the floor's clean, I don't waste anything, and it's super even.
How many coats do you use?
I use four coats minimum are on each bait.
What epoxy do you use?
EX 74 is
You don't get it from Nelson Paint, do you? In Michigan?
No, I get it from Chico.
I use Urac 185.
And,
I use Urac 185,
okay,
and I've had no trouble with that.
okay.
Good.
Yeah, everybody should use something that, that they're, you know, I did the research on it, the cost is great for me,
Yeah.
the performance is
Yeah.
exceptional. So, I keep moving around and you're trying to keep moving.
You're doing fine.
I just didn't want to be behind the table. I feel like I'm infomercial and I don't really think anybody's going to come and attack me, so I don't need that barrier between you and me, so.
Are any of these your casting ones that you talked about? or-
Like that's the casting size there, I make it in. One's called a matlock, one's called a headlock, one's thicker and one's thinner. I came out with these in the 12-inch version only. And then, guys, it's too big, I can't fish with that, my fish aren't that size. And we'll try them. So if I wanted sales, I had to move down. I had to meet the people, you know, some way. They're not gonna fish with a 12-inch bait, which means I don't get their money. So, okay, I'll make a 10. A few people, yeah, okay, I'll buy a 10. And then they want smaller. Yeah, how about 7? No 7. So well, we have an 8.5-inch one. It's called an 8.5. But so the reason for a matlock, a thicker one over a thinner one, is a guide friend of mine in Minnetonka said, your headlocks are great, they catch fish, but they start to work at 2.8 miles an hour. I want them to work around 2 miles an hour because I want to troll slow in the fall when fish are not as aggressive, and I still want that wander that your bait has. But you need a bait that's going to work slower than 2.8. So we designed it. It's a similar lip. It's just a little bit wider to accommodate the wider thickness of the body. And so we got it to start about 2.2. He was happy with that. But then he got cancer and he died, so I couldn't really name the bait. I could have named the bait after him, but
How many do you make in a year?
last year we made 2,800 baits. So this year we're probably on par with that so far. We'll see.
Keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Well, you like, that's what you like, huh?
I love going to work. I don't like really having to go home, but I gotta eat and I wanna see my wife and my kids and, you know, but then again, I like going to work in the morning, so. I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Good.
Not gonna slow down or quit or anything anytime soon. So.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.